Hello, good day, everybody. This is Charles Emmanuel, and I'm here again with another author interview. This time around, I have an amazing author with me as usual, but you'll learn why I said so in a moment. And so, without further ado, let's make welcome Elder Ezekiel Nimrod. Good day, sir.
Good day, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir, and I'm excited that we're able to work on your book, The Broad Path. But just before we get to talk about that book, can you just introduce yourself to our listeners, sir?
Okay, my name is Ezekiel Nimrod. I am a civil servant. I work with the Federal Ministry of Education as a nurse, with my place of assignment at Federal Government College, Sokoto. And I can say I worship at Equa Church here in Sokoto. That is a immigration chapel at Old Airport. And presently, I am the church secretary. So that's a little I can say about myself for now.
Awesome, sir. That's good enough. That's good enough. Thank you, sir. Let's just talk about your book, The Broad Path. I am fascinated about that book, and so I'd like to find out from you first what inspired this book, sir.
Okay. You see, since I became a Christian around 1990, I have been seeing a lot of anomaly, among the youth, which extends to also some adults that I have met in the course of my journey as a Christian. And because of my background, I was delivered after getting born again around April of 1990. I discovered that actually the devil has been using sexual sin, to derail a lot of young people and rob them of their beautiful destinies as Christians. And usually they end up being wayward. So I have been having this in mind to somehow one day write a book. Though before then, God has helped us to actually talk to a lot of youth about this particular method of the enemy, of stealing their destiny and robbing them of God's plan for them. Just about last year, I decided that though I started writing the book actually from 2017, but somehow along the line I stopped. And then later, after I time and after I have seek the Lord's face some more, I decided to complete the completed early this year. So that's the journey of the book so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I like to find out, the title is something very, very interesting. What inspired you to choose that title, The Broad Path?
Okay. You see, according to the Bible, the Jesus, mentions two paths that leads, the narrow way, the straight to destruction. So as I was writing the book, when I started writing the book, actually there was no title. It was after I finished writing the book that the title just dropped into my mind, and I just decided when I looked at the general, content of the book and the reason why I was writing the book, I decided to just pick this title and give it to the book because a lot of things, happen on the broad path, and the end of which is destruction, just as Jesus said.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Now, let's get into the content of the book proper. Now, who is this book for, and what will they learn from reading the broad path?
Okay, so generally for the young Christian, right? Generally for the young Christian who actually, wants to be free from the lure of sexual sin. And what is to be learned from this book is, the origin of, the sin itself, the actual origin of sin itself, which as Christians we know originated from Eden. But then along the way, something happened that actually made matters worse. In Genesis chapter 6, we see some angels which came in and actually, made things worse, including sexual sin. And we see in Proverbs, where the writer of Proverbs was warning, the young people about sexual sin and all that. So what I actually expect people to learn from it is, like I was saying, the dangers generally of sexual sin. And they are also going to learn how the devil has a kind of corrupted people to such extent as which some do not even view the woman as, the right way. There are several sexual perversions I've mentioned in the book, though briefly, that will help people, realize that the problem goes deeper than they knew earlier. And then at the end of the book, of course, there's a way out, a way for freedom. If you have been a kind of infected with this, let me call it disease of sexual sin.
Awesome, awesome. I like the way you rounded that up because it's one thing to highlight all the ills in the country or in the society, but it's another thing to point people in the direction of solution and freedom. And I like how you outlined that in the book. It's amazing. Well done, sir. Well done. Now there are several books on this subject. The subject of sexual sins and stuff is quite popular in the writing or publishing industry. Now I want to find out what makes you believe that this book stands out. What is different about this one from every other book on the market on the same subject?
Okay. If you look at the book generally, you realize that the method that I employed in writing the book is quite different from the ones I have read several in the market, but the approach I took is quite different. Like I told you earlier, the book is particularly for the young Christian, and so I employed the use of stories to draw attention. And if you look at the stories, you realize that the stories also have to do with sexual sin. All right. Now, I wrote the book in such a way that after reading the stories, and then the next part will actually talk about some of what was mentioned in the story and stimulate his interest, in reading the book to the end. That's the reason why it is interspersed with stories in between.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's so true. I particularly love the way you use storytelling to communicate deep truth. It made the read very, very interesting. And thank you so much for that. So I'd like to find out from you, why should readers listen to you? What makes you qualified to teach on this subject?
Okay. Like I said earlier, I was delivered by the Lord from the marine world, which I was initiated into at 6 years, and I was delivered in 1990. And if you look at some of those stories, some of them are actually not fiction. Some of them are actually what happened to me. Most of the stories are what actually happens to me, right? So they are not fiction. They are what actually happens to me, and I kind of use these stories so that it will sound real and original, so that whoever is reading the book will actually know that these dangers, exist. Yes. And there is always a way out. And now, why I feel I'm qualified to write this book is because these things actually happens to me. And if I keep quiet, a lot of people will go on the broad path whose end is destruction. So I want to cut that journey short and bring people back to God and bring people back to a place of repentance. Now, I have been a Christian for more than 30 years. I have been, like I said earlier, a youth teacher, leader. And, and that has made me, come into contact with a lot of youth, a lot of youth, a lot of youth. And I have seen the anguish. I have seen the sorrow. And in one of the stories I shared in the book, there was this story about my village, where in the mid to late 90s, There were so many unplanned pregnancies, let me call them unplanned pregnancies, because so many young men believed that if a girl actually loved them, she ought to sleep with them. And, it pained me to see young people getting pregnant, people who would have gone on to universities, whose future, would have been bright, to see them falling by the wayside because of this sexual sin. And it was then, around that time, that I started going about, preaching on the streets, to try to reach out to these young people. And I had friends who, I spoke to, though some of them at that time made fun of me, but I continued, and the Lord helped me. And I think over more than 30 years experience, I feel I should somehow put this in form of a book to a kind of give the young people a kind of a head up, because they are heading in the wrong direction.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Indeed, I used to say that anyone who has lived 20 years in this world has an experience that they can share, let alone someone who's walked a path for 30 years. There's certainly so much to share from that experience. Thank you for taking the time to pen those down. I'd like to find out from you, sir, in the course of writing this book, was there anything you discovered or experienced that you like readers to know? For example, I've seen people who say that the devil fucked them throughout the writing process each time they try to write their computer. I've seen people who talk about how that every time they try to focus on this, challenges will come to stop them from getting the job done. Different experiences, and some have even gotten to learn a lot more about the subject they wanted to write on in the course of writing. So I don't know, is there any experience or occurrence in the course of writing this material that, or even a challenge you had while writing that you'd like readers to know?
Okay. I mentioned earlier, though in passing, that I started writing in 2017. Okay. And, when I started writing, everything was fine. And my first draft, when I finished the first draft, I thought it was to publish. So I contacted a publisher. I later discovered that, it was not, yet time for that book to be published. And sir, if I'm to bring the old manuscript and what we have now, and you compare the two, you discover that there is a great difference between the two. So it was God's way of showing me that it was not yet time.
Yes, sir.
And secondly, when I was writing this book, honestly, the truth is my computer broke more than 3 times.
Wow.
And if I hadn't backed things up, I would have lost everything.
Wow.
Yes. My computer broke 3 times, and I had to buy another computer. When I bought another computer, it also broke down. I finished this manuscript on my 3rd computer.
My God.
Funny enough.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. And I also had issues, with my health. When you're writing this type of a book that has to do with exposing some aspect of the enemy's strategies, just prepare for battle. Prepare for battle. And yes, I had issues also with my health, but, somehow God came through for me, and I am fine and healthy today. Yes.
Thank God.
Yes.
Thank God. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the sacrifice, the time, and the effort you have put into writing this. Honestly, you write from a position of understanding and wisdom that is not common. And I'm honored that we're able to help make this a reality. Just before we wrap up, sir, is there anything you'd like the audience to know about you, your ministry, and what you stand for?
Okay. Basically, my ministry is with the youth. And, any community, any church without youth is already dead. So when we equip the youth, when we plant them, in the right path, we have a future, we have hope. And, if the devil wants to kill a generation, he starts with the young ones. So basically, my ministry is to see that the youth, are planted on the right path. That is my desire, and that is what my ministry is all about. And that is what my life is all about. And secondly, it is to expose the works and strategies and plans of the kingdom of darkness. Presently, I am writing my second book, which is also, talking about the strategies of the enemy and how he enslaves people, and also the pathway to freedom. So that is my ministry, to make sure that people are free from the influence of the evil one.
Wow. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Well done, sir. Any last words before we wrap up? Just any last closing remarks, and we'll call it a wrap, sir.
Okay. Last words. What I want to say is this: Christians should be careful. Anybody at all should be careful. The right thing to do and the right way to follow is the way of Christ. Yes. And anything outside him leads to death.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. This has been an amazing time. And dear viewers, there you have it. That's Elder Ezekiel Nimrod sharing on his latest book of Path. Now, the links to download and order your copies will be right below this video for your convenience. And if by adventure you have need to contact the author directly, we'll also have his contact details in the description for you as well. Thank you so much for watching, and please click that link right away. Buy a copy for yourself, buy for a friend, and buy for the friend of your friend, and see how we can help everyone cure this disease, like he puts it, and save our generations to come. God bless you. Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure to have you. It was really great to have you on this. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, dear viewers. Bye-bye, and then I'll see you next time on another Author Institute. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.